Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Good to have you. This is Nghi here with Leapsome. My understanding is that in the previous sessions, you might have already seen Leapsome, heard of Leapsome, and also seen some of the things that we do in action. During the session today, we're going to cover specifically Leapsome AI use cases. And my colleagues, they're monitoring the chat. So during the session, if you have any questions at all, feel free to just pop these questions in the chat. We're happy to get back to you. But right now, let me just quickly share my screen, and then we can dive into the Leapsome AI use cases together. All right, so I'm sharing my screen now, and I guess you can see Leslie Leapsome. Again, this is the dashboard of any user on Leapsome. And as Leslie is also a team leader, she will also have a team dashboard, giving her an idea of everything that she needs to know about her team. Now, since I only have around 20 minutes with you, I will just focus on our AI use cases for two key processes. One is the survey processes, and two will be the performance reviews. So let's get cracking. So for the survey, think about the engagement survey that you run, for example. Maybe you run this survey once or twice a year. What you're going to get is going to be a lot of data. Now, think about a heat map, right? Everyone wants to look at the heat map so that you can get an overview of their teams. And just as an example, in my demo environment, I have 10 employees across 5 or 6 different teams. And this is the amount of data that we're going to get. The good thing about the heat map is that you can get a lot of data, but the bad thing about this is that what do you want to do with this data, and how do we even digest this data? And it's not just relevant for HR teams that has to monitor the entire org, but it's also relevant for managers that has to manage a lot of employees and potentially different sub-teams within their responsibility, right? Within Leapsome, our AI comes in as a way to simply break the data down in a way that is really easily digestible. Here, I can see the smart prompt to summarize the data heat map, the data that we're looking at on the heat map. And this is an easy way for us to understand what are the overall trends of the engagement, the sentiment of the employees across different teams, the key insights, and what are the areas that we need to pay attention to. Really easy to understand and digest the data this way, right? Now, you could also think about the heat map as the quantitative data that we capture. But we can also do the same way with qualitative data, and that's going to be with the comments, right? Again, I have 10 employees, 5, 6 different teams. I got 68 different comments across different questions that we asked the team. But for you, maybe you have 100 employees, or maybe thousands of employees. It's not realistic for us to come over all of these comments to do analysis. But that's where we come in with the AI features. The AI Copilot on Leapsome will give you an idea of what are the areas that are critical for the team. And as you can see, the bigger the bubbles and the closer these bubbles are to the negative line, the more negative comments or the more negative sentiments we capture via the comments that employees share. And also, it's not just giving you an idea of what are critical, but also it gives you a very good idea of the breakdown of what do employees actually say within each of these comments or each of these topics that we capture. So here, as an example, these are the recurring themes that employees mention a lot about. And these are the exact context that they share via their comments. You can also very quickly get a conclusion of what is the current picture that we're looking at. Now, this is all really good to again understand the data from the quantitative perspective and also the qualitative side of things, but it doesn't stop there. From here, you can also get AI to suggest relevant next steps to put in place so that we can improve the employee sentiment over time, because the data is only as meaningful as our ability to take actions after we capture this data, right? So in summary, we can use Leapsome AI to summarize data, both qualitative and quantitative, and use that data to inform meaningful action items post-surveys. Right, and as you can see, the AI is very diligent and is still working on it. All right, moving on to the performance reviews. I will come from the perspective of a review giver or a manager. To put it simply, let's say Leslie is a manager. When you kick off the performance reviews, her task is to give feedback to her direct reports. In this case, we have Elizabeth and Oscar. To give feedback to Elizabeth, within this template, you can add any metrics or any evaluation elements that you want to have in a template. And my example here would be the goal. So the simple way to understand this is that Elizabeth is working on vetting potential venues for the winter company event, right? This is the goal that we set up. And the challenge for the manager, or for me, Leslie, to give feedback to Elizabeth here is the fact that this goal might have been set up 6 months ago or 12 months ago. We have come this far, but it's really hard for me to give relevant feedback right now because it's been a while. And Elizabeth is not the only direct report that I have. So what can AI do on Leapsome to help me out as a manager? We have review coach here to help me out. So as you can see, how does the review coach work? What it does is the review coach will come in, and instead of asking you to write a piece of feedback that is static, it will prompt relevant questions for me to think about Elizabeth's work, her performance, the project that she's working on. And because the coach has the full context of Elizabeth's performance in the past and the stuff that she's working on, the coach will be able to give me very relevant questions for me to think about. For example, they asked me what stood out to me in terms of Elizabeth's approach when it comes to this project that she's working on. Let's say I want to start first by saying I think what stood out to me was the fact that Elizabeth was very detailed in her search. She always stick very closely to the criteria before presenting options, and that allow us to move very quickly. I punch in this piece of feedback, and what the coach will come up with is a follow-up question so that I can tailor my feedback to be even more constructive and even more specific. Let's see what we got. Okay, as you can see here, it acknowledged what we said, that the context has been shared. And then follow-up questions is, can you tell me a little bit more about the obstacle that she had to work through and how did she handle these? Let's say I'll punch in another prompt and share a little bit more context with the coach. Here's a specific situation that we can think through. Well, when we were close to signing the contract with one of the partners, they wanted to increase the price. And Elizabeth quickly gathered quotes from the other venues and other partners, and then managed to successfully negotiate the price down. And then we finalized a contract with the venue. This is a very specific example that I wanted to give so that, as you can see, the coach won't let you go until we get enough data for the feedback that we want to give, ensuring that the feedback can be very constructive, detailed, and also contextual. As you can see, the conversation continues. And when we feel like we got enough context to give for a piece of feedback that we're targeting, we can also ask the coach to put together a draft based on the context that we have shared and the conversation that we have had together with the coach. So as you can see, now the draft has been ready. I can have a look at the draft a little bit later. But just so you know, one thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that what we've done to arrive at this point is typing our answers and input, but you no longer have to do that because on Leapsome, you can also just turn on this functionality or click on this button and directly speak with the coach, and the coach will just give you feedback just like it's been doing. You just don't have to type like I did. You can do these activities on your way to work, when you're sitting in the train, and when you arrive at the office, you have a piece of feedback ready, put together by the coach based on the context that you share. And from here, you would still have full control over, whether we want to adjust the piece of feedback, fully accept the feedback, and then send it and share that with Elizabeth. So again, This will save a lot of time, but we will not compromise on the quality of the feedback. It's still very contextual. It's still very actionable. And this is applicable not just for the managers giving feedback, but it's also applicable to anyone giving feedback, because it could also be peers. It can also be helping Elizabeth, write her self-assessment, for example, as well. Now, when we have a different perspective on the feedback, right? It doesn't stop there. Think about it this way. If you only have a manager and employees, the employees giving self-evaluation and a manager giving feedback, it's really easy to digest the data. But what if you have a lot of perspective, including maybe 10 different peers that Elizabeth worked with on this particular project? How do we then easily understand the kind of feedback that we gather for Elizabeth at the end of the year? Again, you got it. I think you see where I'm getting at. You can ask AI to also summarize the feedback and that we've been receiving for Elizabeth coming from different perspectives. And just like what we've seen in the survey module, helping us understanding and digesting data is one thing that Leapsome does really well. But on top of that, what we can also ask AI to do is help us take the next step. What if I say, look, great, thanks for the summary. Now that I understand, the changes, the development that Elizabeth made over time, if improvement areas and strengths, I want to make the next step even more concrete. I will tell them, look, Elizabeth wants to become a manager in the next 6 months. Could you help me with some suggestions on development plans that we could potentially work on? And again, because the AI coach has full context on Elizabeth's historical performance data and the project that she's working on, performance that review and the feedback that she's been receiving, and the expectation for the next role, you can also ask AI for suggestions on, what are the areas or the things that we can put in place to help Elizabeth get to where she wants to be. All right. I will. We have around 7 more minutes, so I'm going to cover one more thing. What you're looking at so far, this is from the perspective of the employees and the managers and the workflow that they do. I'll just give you a hint of what's going to happen after the performance reviews for the HR team or the senior leadership team. You have a bird's eye view of the performance data across different teams, and not just Elizabeth or Oscar, but across the entire organization. And as you can see here, AI is every step of the way. You can also use the same functionality to summarize the survey heat map data or putting the next step in place for the employees or the people that we're looking to support. And the AI copilot here will always help you do that. 2 key items. 1, helping data more digestible. And 2, putting the next steps in place based on the data that we capture. It doesn't matter whether it's going to be on the reviews module, the goals module, the things that we're working on in the survey. AI is just every step of the way. All right. I will have a quick look at the questions that we have in the chat box so that we can see how we can also address them since we have a little bit of time left. Yes, Scania, we can also enable this for peer feedback, the AI coach. Great question. So how can we use AI for meeting? So here's how I use AI for meeting when I lead a team. Let's say Oscar and Elizabeth is going into a one-to-one. And before the one-to-one, I want to quickly have AI resurface for me what are the goals that my team, specifically Oscar, is working on that urgently need my support. So without diving into the stuff that Oscar is working on an individual basis, I can also ask AI to just surface that for me. And in the same manner, I can also ask AI to just quickly capture for me what are the key action items that we said we're going to do, or the things that we want to touch on during the meetings, and so that I can prep before the meetings that I have with, it could be Oscar, it could be the team meeting where we touch on the goals, update the goals. Yeah. I cannot see the question. The last question is, can you show us the goal part? Seems interesting. Okay, of course. So when it comes to the goals, on Leapsome, you can create goals on different level. It could be company level, it could be team level, and it could go all the way down to individual level. The cool thing here is that I would just focus on our AI use cases here. Let's say post-performance reviews, we want to improve communication. And this is going to be the goal that Leslie will own. It's going to be a personal development goals for Leslie, and this will tie to communication as a skill. And from here, we can have AI generate relevant key results. I would just put on the data. This is going to be the goal for Q2, for example. And with AI, knowing what Leslie is good at, where she wants to be when it comes to communication, knowing what feedback she has received in terms of communication, we can also ask AI to make suggestions on maybe potential courses that Leslie needs to take to improve her communication skill, given the responsibilities within her role. So yeah, this is all about putting the next steps in place based on the data that we have. So here, as you can see, these are the suggestions that we can get. It will get us to very quickly to the starting point where we can then add relevant key results, but then of course is within our full control to adjust how we want to track the progress of the goals as we move the needles there. All right. I hope that answers the questions. Right. You're welcome. I see another question from Scania. The simple answer is yes, because the context that we feed into and train our AI Copilot is dynamic, right? The more data we have, the better decisions and the better suggestions is going to make, including the kind of goals that we create and what good looks like for these goals. I'm glad you like it.